Okay, thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy to talk today about the images and the stories we tell about AI. And yeah, 7 years ago, when I studied at the Media University in Stuttgart, I had a class about Matrix and Ex Machina and other AI movies. And I found these movies so interesting because we learn about the opposite, about man versus machine. And we also think about how do we see our future? What conflicts will we have with AI? And also, what does this tell about our mindset, about our future skills? And if we have problems with AI, what solutions do we show in these films? Like, is there a happy end or is it a very dark future we're looking into? So I decided I want to do my doctoral thesis about AI in movies. And yeah, it took me 6 years to write this book because I watched over 100 AI movies and then I chose 70 movies for a more detailed analysis. And I built 3 categories about AI movies. And now I want to present you the most interesting results I've found. At first, I want to start at the birth of AI in our real world. It was 1956. It was the Dartmouth Conference in the USA, and these men decided we want to build a machine that simulates intelligent behavior. So AI is not intelligent, it just simulates it. And yes, they developed a machine where you could play a board game with. So this was 1956, but it took us 14 years until the first movie came out where the whole story is about an AI and it is set in the near future. So we had movies before, like in outer space, on a spaceship where there's an AI getting out of control. We all know it. 2001, A Space Odyssey. And also some other movies about like robot aliens from other planets. But in the near future, the first movie about AI was 1970. So it needed a little bit of time until filmmakers saw AI in a world that is very similar to our world. Like political systems, buildings we know, like the whole social structure. It's like not in a cyberspace, it was like very close to our day-to-day world. And this movie Colossus is about an expert system. So it's about an expert system that should secure the people in the USA. And in the end, it became like the real threat and suppresses the whole humanity. So this was one of the first and also very good movies to watch about an AI that becomes a threat. So instead of making our world more safe, the AI is like the real threat we are facing. And there were, in the 1970s, 1980s, and until today, a lot of movies about this threat narrative. So all movies start with the idea that artificial intelligence will bring progress in our life and do something good, like more security. But then it tries to kill people and wants to have the control about humanity. And one of the most famous movies in Germany is The Terminator, and also in the world. So who of you have seen the movie The Terminator? So I think, yeah, not everybody, but like most of the people here saw it. So that's like a very classic movie because the figure of Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's so famous in the role of the Terminator, and he was sent from a super intelligent AI from the future and to kill the woman who will give birth to the man who will save humanity from AI. So the threat is really about like the whole world is in danger, and yeah, it's in the end like the Terminator can be destroyed. It's very often like that in the threat narrative. The AI is destroyed, so it's not longer there in this environment. But there's always the end with, oh, it will come back. So be aware. So the message in these movies is, be aware, AI will get out of control, it will become self-conscious, and yeah, you have to be careful all the time if this technology is around you. So AI is really evil in this narrative. And we have a second one, like a narrative where AI is good. Maybe some of you have seen the movie Short Circuit from 1986. So in the 1980s, there were more movies about good AI. It's AI that has feelings and motives, and the AI wants to live in a family. So Short Circuit, it's this humanoid robot you can see here. He was built from military. It was very expensive production, and he got hit by a lightning, and then he becomes self-aware, and he's like a child. Like, he's very scared, but also he wants to learn a lot. And then he finds this very nice woman who adopts him. And it's very often about a story about like family, adoption, and the military wants to get this robot back. So this liberation narrative is about a robot who wants to live in freedom. And it's also a story about emancipation because he wants equal rights. So we have this bad and evil AI on the one hand, and this very good and very human-like AI on the other hand. So Short Circuit, it's not that famous like Terminator, so who knows this movie? Okay, it's maybe like 10 people. So you see like the threat narrative, it's much more present than the liberation narrative. And the interesting thing is in the 1980s, there were some of these movies, and you can see there is this influence of the Cold War, that the family life, like our life, is in danger because of like military decisions. But in the 1990s, the liberation narrative, it declined, like there weren't so many movies about it. And the interesting thing is that in 1997, there was a really big milestone in like real AI development, because an AI defeated the world chess champion Kasparov. So AI was better in chess than a human being in 1970, and it was in the news, so you could read it everywhere in the news. But in 1990 and in the 2000 years, like from 2000 until 2010, there was a decline of AI movies. So in the like real world, AI was getting further and progressing, but there weren't so many movies. And it changed in 2011. Apple introduced Siri, and in the following years, we had a lot of new technologies. We had, for example, robots that clean our house. We have Alexa, we can ask questions in our home. And you can really see that in 2013 and the years after, there was a rise of AI movies. So then the topic from the real world also influenced the number of movies about AI that are fictional. And a very famous movie is Her. And it was just released 2 years after Siri was presented. So there could be an influence. And the interesting thing is that this is a new narrative. We had the threat narrative, the liberation narrative about good and bad AI, and now it's about relationship. So at the beginning of these stories about relationship narratives, a person who feels lonely or has some psychological issues, he feels lonely, and then he meets somehow an AI and falls in love with the AI or wants to have a friendship with this AI. And at the beginning, the person feels better because there is somebody. He can talk to this AI and he have dates, he goes out, like it's good for his behavior and also his mindset and how he feels. But then always, in all the stories about AI and a man or a woman in love with an AI, there are like big conflicts. And in the end, they always break up. So the message, if a person falls in love with an AI, is always like, don't fall in love. Like in the end, it's a chaos, it's a catastrophe. So the relationship always ends bad. So it's also somehow negative narrative. And there are just a few narratives about friendship where the problems, they're at the beginning of the story, But then in the end, like, they can make it out. They have a project they can go for together, and friendship, they can last longer. So friendship with AI is okay, but not love, like romantic love or a mother-child love with AI. That's never working out. And there's some more trends I discovered, like looking at movies in the 2010s. So we also have hybrid narratives. A hybrid narrative means that you combine 2 or 3 narratives I told you about. So Ex Machina, it's a combination of all the 3 narratives I told you about. Because we have a man who falls in love with this humanoid robot woman named Ava, and he falls in love and wants to help her escape this place where she was built. And it is this place where, like, her creator, who's like this modern tech mogul, he is violent and aggressive, and she seems like having feelings and suffering there. So this man, who's also in this laboratory, he wants to help her. So he falls in love. That's the relationship narrative. And she, Ava, wants to live in a civilization with humans. So she wants equal rights. So it's also about liberation. But to go there, she kills her creator. So it's also a threat because she's killing someone. But the story above all, like the main story, the character and the goal, it's about liberation narrative. So this one is the most dominant, but it's combined with others. So in 2010, we have a lot of stories like that. So AI is not only good or bad, it's like in between, and every movie is looking at it from a very individual's perspective. We have more ambivalent AI, and also in movies like Companion, that is this year in the cinema, it's also a combination of these narratives. So it gets more complex, but still very often AI is somehow negative or a threat because it's killing someone. And another trend in 2010 until today, it's that we have these we have movies about collaboration with AI. A very good example is the movie Robert and Frank. It is about an old man who lives alone, and his son really forces him to get his robot, and the robot has to clean and help this man to get more active, to go for a walk, and the man really hates it. Like, he needs to change his behaviors, what he eats, how he walks, what he does. But then they find together a hobby, and he likes to steal things from other people, this man. So the robot helps him and doesn't understand that it's like forbidden to steal things. So they get like friends, but the interesting thing is that this is one of the rare movies where AI is not human-like. It is more like a tool, and a tool who also says to the other person, I am not conscious, I only simulate it to you. And you can just delete me. I don't care, I'm just a tool. But still, the man has feelings for him because it's like his friend, also a little bit like his son because he teaches him a lot of things and spends time with him. So it's still an emotional story, but it's a very realistic AI. And we have some of these movies starting in the 2000s, but not that many. So one of my messages is always, we could tell more stories about these kind of realistic AI, and an AI that is more a cooperation partner, where the person is like the pilot and the AI is the co-pilot, and only if the person wants him to be. There's also this movie Stealth from 2004, and it's also about this co-pilot-pilot thing. So man and machine, it's more realistic. And I think we need more stories because we have a mystification of AI in our culture. So to summarize it, the threat narrative, it was constantly present from 1970 until today. Like in every decade, we have the same amount of movies we are telling. So right now, we still tell it, and it's still very prominent. But we have the liberation narrative, and it had two peaks in the history. The first peak was 1980 because of the Cold War and the threat for families. And the second peak was 2010 because liberation narrative is always in combination with female emancipation. So the stories like Ex Machina or Companion, they're about women emancipation in the end. And that was so interesting because all the stories in the 1980s were about male AI. And in the 2010, it's almost all movies are about women, like female AI robots who kill their male creator, who is really violent. And the relationship narrative has the first peak in the 2010s. And there are so many movies about relationships, so it's even more than about the threat narrative. But very often they're not that famous. And yeah, for example, Her or the Black Mirror episode, Be Right Back, they're all about these love stories, but still these images, they are not as present as a Terminator or images from Matrix. So I would love to see more narrations about realistic AI, also ethical questions and ethical aspects. And I think it's really good if we reflect our own narratives and ask ourselves why our image of AI is often so negative, with so much fear and stress that like AI will get the control about us, or that it will be like very human-like and we are not important anymore. So these are like big fears, and we could just ask ourselves, so how realistic is this really? Because AI is a tool, and we're not so afraid of like normal computers. And if we stay in mind that this threat narrative, it comes from like Frankenstein narrative and also even older stories, and it just fits very well to our cultural stories, but we need new ones, like more, what future skills do we need? What ethical questions should we ask right now? Like who has the power and manipulation right now in this time? And it's not an AI, it's more about like some millionaires or some managers, and we should ask, what are they doing and how could we look for an ethical framework? So these are the stories we should ask. So thank you very much, and let's stay in touch, and I'm happy to discuss with you.